I think that something that it happened to us there in Boston is that, for example, Sebastian, when you explain the drill, you explain first of all with the players, and then you put the players into the space, and then you must repeat again. I think that is something that you can change a little bit, and changing that, we're gonna we can invest more time in the training session. Something that could happen in our training session, distractions. Yeah, when the distractions come, when the players have the ball, when the coach is not facing the players, when maybe the coach is talking to one players but the other ones are not, when the players can talk between them. And I think that if the for me the steps to introduce the drill has to be about put the players on the space. Yes, players in the space, it's always going to be easier to visualize how the drill will work. The balls, all the balls stop in one place. Yes, we don't need to put the place. It's very they don't have the balls. And after that, for me, uh, we have to talk about the drill dynamic. We don't have to talk about what we want, the concepts, and all the stuff. I think that the first objective when we introduce the drill is that the players run the drill. And after that, we can introduce the key information. Also, when we introduce the drill, we have this time to analyze the drill and talk about the coaching points. But for me, the most important about when we want to run a drill is talk about how this drill will work. What are your thoughts here? Do, are you talking when you introduce a drill? You always talk about the concepts. You talk about coaching points, or you go straight to the point?
We usually get the players going right away. We explain it. We let them play. They generally use the opening round. We'll call it a warm-up round, or it's like a practice round, and just so they can start to just worry about how it operates. And then from there, we start to dive into the content and what we want to learn. And then, like you said, it's a moment to assess where they're at. So if I have a group that's returning to an exercise we've done before, I can see, all right, this is a recall. This is where they're at. This is where we need to adjust. If this is a brand new exercise, sometimes I let it go longer because they're just trying to figure out how to score. Like as you talked about in the communication, introducing the drill, we'll walk through how the point system is scored. We'll give, this is what it looks like to score. And so it's because that's all they really typically are focused on right away is how do we score? What's the rules, right? So we walk through it, let them do it for a round, and then we start to dive into content usually.
That's perfect. I think that it's a good description about how it has to be the delivery guide in the beginning. I think that if we spend too much time talking about concepts and all the stuff, probably then you're running the drill and something is not working well, and probably all the information that we provided, the players don't remember it, or just it's not effective because they cannot apply it or they cannot implement those concepts. Then I think that it's good that we run the drill, we start to see what will happen, but at least the players know how the drill works. Russell, Rick, Ryan, Sebastian, anything to say here?
Yeah, one point I would make is, depending on the complexity of what you're doing, your drill, right? Suppose you have a lot of rules and stuff like that. What I would do is, think about which rules are the most important to feed in and get them playing, right? And then adjust later where you add maybe a few more rules that are necessary so that you don't overwhelm them with too much information, especially if, the thing you're doing in particular requires, a good number of rules. So just get them playing. Think about just the fundamental aspects and the key, rules or whatever, scoring being one of them, of course, right? As Michael said, and then get things going as quickly as possible. And then if you need to make adjustments or add additional rules, you do it in a second phase.
That's a very interesting point, because sometimes we have a lot of rules, or the scoring rules, we have different rules, and we must think about which is the rule that it has to be the fundamental rule, right? The one that we want to, or will help us to achieve the main objective. After that, we can add different layers of complexity, adding more rules. But yeah, I think that it's important to step by step, we can add more complexity into the drill by having some rules. But it's important to understand which rule is the one that will help us to achieve the main objective. Ryan, do you want to say something before?
I was gonna say something, but it had more about maybe the next piece you're gonna go over in terms of the coaching points.
Okay, let's go to the coaching points then. Okay, coaching points is the last one. Let's go to how to run the drill, right? We talk about introduce the drill, and now I think that for me, in my experience, I think that when we run a drill, we introduce the drill, we run the drill, and after a while, when the players get the dynamic, we can step by step introduce the coaching points by rules, new rules, or by providing key information. Okay, run the drill. Yes. What are the points that you consider important in the analysis of the drill?
I guess when I look at it, is seeing if like what I'm trying to coach through the constraints of the design of the activity, are they coming out? Are they happening frequently? You know, what's if they are great, if they aren't, why is it happening? And then is it and kind of like you said, if you could be working on a defensive topic, but if the attacking is poor, then it doesn't help you really point out some of the important information defending because they don't really have to defend that well. So I think it's trying to kind of read like what's is what I'm coaching happening, and is it happening frequent enough? And so I think that's one of the key things that kind of I start looking at right away with the activity.
That's that's for me the main point. I want to work on 1v1 situations on defense. Is my drill providing 1v1 situation defense situations? Yes or no? No. And then I must reflect about why. And I think that normally we have those points because of the space, because of the drill dynamic that I thought that's gonna be in one way, it's going in opposite way. And then about the key information. And here, I think that is what you said before. If the key information must be directed to enhance the objective, trying to focus on the objective. If the information must be in order to enhance the opposition, okay, my offensive level, it's not, or they are not doing this because the defense is too poor, then just doing something less complex, they can achieve the final goal, then I must focus on defense to increase the challenge. And I think that something important is that if our information is clear, right? Talking about the space, we can observe that we can have the problem that space is too big, space is too small, space is too wide, space is too long, right? Normally, the space can affect, and adjusting this, if we see that the rhythm is not good enough, probably we can reduce a little bit the space in order to help the defenders to press the ball, and because of that, the attackers will be forced to play quicker. Another interesting point is the dynamic, right? Okay, I thought that my drill, I want to work on dribbling to get a free player, but I see that all the time the players are passing the ball and they are finding free players. Okay, then I must reflect about, okay, if my objective is to dribble, why the players are passing? Maybe the space is too short. Okay, then I will have to adjust the space. Maybe the defenders are not holding and they are pressing aggressively. Okay, maybe the players that are the players near from the ball, they are finding a spots where they can receive. This is because of the players of the attackers or because of the defenders. Then try to understand what is happening in the drill. This dynamic will help us to after that provide the key information, right? And here it's always what you said. For me, the most important point on run the drill is about understanding if the players need to and then or needs to focus more on the objective, or we need to focus on the opposition, trying to increase the challenge. Sometimes we can see that if the objective is too easy to achieve, the first thing to do has to be trying to enhance the position. Even though if the defense, it's imagine an offensive concept that we work and we are achieving, and then we said, okay, we wanna try to improve the defense, and even though the offensive objective is still achieving, then we can adjust the space to say, okay, we're gonna make the space a little smaller, trying to help the defenders. If this doesn't work, maybe I can change a little bit the dynamic of the drill, adding a new constraint, right? If we're playing with a player on behind, and this player has 2 touches, okay, maybe this player can be a bounce player, only 1 touch. If well, we can adjust depending on our concepts. I think that this is the first analysis about, okay, is the space good enough? How is the dynamic working? Why the drill is running in that way? And depending on how the drill is running, I can adjust the space, I can adjust the dynamic by adding constraints, or I can focus providing information, focusing on the objective, or focusing on the opposition, trying to increase the challenge for the main objective. And I think that once, if the drill is a mess that nobody understands anything, of course that is a problem for the coach. If nobody gets the point of the drill, is a coach problem. Then we must to stop and repeat again. But before stop and repeat again, we must reflect about, okay, why I explain this and nobody is understanding, and what are the main points, maybe the 2-3 points that I have to attack and be more clear in my information. I think that this could be the process for the coach when he's running the drill and the drill is not running. And I think that this is something that could happen often. Maybe do you do this consciously, unconsciously? Do you reflect anytime about it? Ryan, you're coaching many coaches, almost more than APFC. What do you think?
Yeah, I think when I think the point I was gonna talk about was that that's a one piece I think I like noticed like in the past of myself, but also with coaches that I observe, is that they'll have like their preset coaching points already to go, and they won't allow they've got the activity ready, and then they will hop in and then have set times where they'll insert the coaching point, even though maybe that coaching point isn't relevant to it, or because the players are doing well with it, or they haven't had a chance to really grapple with that because the activity isn't set up or running correctly. So I think that's but yeah, so I think that's something that's I've actually got to the point where when I go out, I'll time how long like rounds of an activity are let to go, and I think there's sometimes when it's like 30 seconds or 45 seconds before a coach inserts themselves. And I think I've consciously got to that where I'll time myself and make sure I'll allow like, for it to go 2.5 minutes before, and really allow myself to observe during that time. And like, I think it sometimes can be, or like as a personally, I've experienced it, but like witnessing other coaches, it can be uncomfortable when you feel like you should be saying something to give information versus, this is a time where you should be trying to assess, well, the activities are running well, and what is going wrong, like are they achieving the objective, why are they not doing it, and kind of be able to sift through or filter through like what information could I give based on what I'm seeing. So yeah, I definitely have that's what I kind of observed in some of my observations of our current coaches.
That's a good point. As you said, that some coaches, they run the drill and 30 seconds, 40 seconds, they stop the drill again. And I think that we as a coaches, we should try to adjust the drill without stop the drill. And I think that we can change the drill dynamic or just providing information. or I can enhance the position just by focusing on the position without stop and telling them what they are doing wrong. And this is an important point that we as a coaches, normally all of us, we were players. And when I was player, the thing that I hate most is that I cannot play. And the coach is stopping all the time the drill, right? It's really uncomfortable. Then I think that we as a coaches, the last option is to stop the drill. We should try to change the drill dynamic if it requires talking with the players or providing key messages. And at the last point, stop it. But as you said, it's important to have this period of time, this reflection time, this analysis time about, okay, why the drill is not working in the way that I want, or if the drill is working in another way, understand why it is happening, and it could be a good option too, right? As we said before, okay, I want that my player dribble to create a free player, but the players, because of their good position in the field, we are finding free players and we are passing. This could be a problem, and this could be a solution. It doesn't need to be a bad option. But in that point, I have to reflect, okay, why is happening this? Is because the players are doing so well, because the defenders are doing so bad. Okay, I will change it. I can adjust the space and see if with less space they can find the free player or they are forced to dribble. I think that those points, this reflection, is something that the coaches maybe don't think too much when they are running drill. And for me, it's this about space. Understand if the rules that I share with the rules and constraints that I share with the players are helping to achieve the objective. But sometimes one day I have the experience that I was in my waffle license, and a player said, "I want to improve the dribbling, to create a free player." Okay, and the first constraint was 2 touches for each player. I said, how can you dribble if you constrain with 2 touches? And it's not effective, right? And then if my constraints really help them, and then understand if what we said, the levels, good attacking level that influence the defensive or not, and vice versa. Okay, let's go to the coaching points that I think that it's really important too. Yes, analysis and deliberate information. Yeah. How do you analyze the coaching points that you're working? Do you prepare the coaching points before the training session? Do you have on your mind the idea about what you want? You can discern what could be the coaching points and what could be the layers of complexity.
I think it's having a good idea of what you're wanting to coach, and then understanding, not having like a preset of this is what I'm going to say when after round 2 or round 3, but having a good understanding of, okay, what are the concepts or what might go wrong, or what, and what might I see, and having a good grasp of that information, so that when you are watching it in real time, then you're able to kind of allocate, okay, that mistake is related to this concept, or not a proper execution of this concept. So I think it's more having a very clear idea of like what you're looking for, and not maybe potentially looking for too much right away, and layering that. Yeah, so that's kind of initial thoughts there. But I think also too with like the delivery information, you all might be a little different than me, but like I don't like to play the guessing game of asking questions to players and then have them kind of guess what I'm thinking in my head, which I think is just a kind of a drawn out way of a coach getting across information when you could deliver that when the player really doesn't have a good idea of what they should be doing. You can kind of tell right away, but the coach will kind of sit there and ask some questions and say, kind of give them little hints to eventually get to the answer that's the coach wants, when they could have probably kind of gotten straight to the point, and when it's clearly the coach or the player doesn't know what they're saying. I think there's times when you've worked with a team or players for a longer time when you can ask questions because they have experience with it, and they might recognize, oh, I didn't, the player, I shouldn't have stepped in the situation because the ball was free and I left the space behind, and they know what that means now versus earlier on playing the guessing game with players. So I think it's kind of like understanding where you are with players in the process.
Thoughts here, Michael, Russell, Rick?
No, I think I can relate a lot to what everybody here is saying. Obviously, we have our own methods and ways in how we analyze. I think just obviously knowing the concept that you're trying to prepare for the training session, and really understanding the information, and then obviously at that point, similarly in some ways to Ryan, like, understanding what those constraints are, what the rules that you're applying into the exercises, and what behaviors are going to come out of that, right? And observing and analyzing those behaviors and the tendencies where you'll allow yourself to find a moment to kind of insert yourself for a particular concept now, or sorry, coaching point. So there might be in real time while they're playing that you might not get to a certain coaching point that you want to. And I relate to Ryan on this too. Like, you're not just going to throw in a coaching point just to throw in a coaching point when it actually hasn't come out in terms of the actual exercise. So, yeah.
But do you think that prepare the coaching points can anticipate some information that maybe can appear on the drill?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why, like, you need to know and understand like these coaching points ahead of time, so that you're in real time when you do see these things come out in game, you're able to use the ones that you're ready to prepare, you're ready to use. So in terms of your preparation, you should have that ready, in my opinion. And you should really know what you're looking for prior to the actual exercise. Now, again, I don't think that sometimes you might not get to all the coaching points.
Yeah, that's my thought is that when we have the drill, we must reflect about what will happen or what could happen, and because of that, you can reflect about, okay, if I present this problem for the players, normally they will use those tools to solve the problem, right? Those tools that normally are concepts, they have different coaching points that are different process, right? Okay, if I want to achieve this concept, normally I have to follow 3, 4, 5 different coaching points to achieve that we apply successfully this concept. My opinion is that for coaches who has no a clear knowledge, it could be very beneficial. Think about, okay, maybe those are the concepts. I will write them, right? I will write in my notebook, and I will try to see if we achieve those coaching points. And also reflect about, okay, this coaching point cannot be achieved because we're doing those mistakes, and try to correlate. I think that if a coach is able to do that, it's going to be more prepared on the training session. But also the coach, and this is the beautiful about being coach. I think that the coach doesn't need to explain all the information. The coach needs to explain the information that the situation requires, and sometimes is as less as possible. But we need the big knowledge in order to select the key information. If I don't have too many information, then it's possible that I choose the wrong information to deliver for the players. But if I have a lot of information in my head and I'm able to identify which is the one that I have to provide, then is when we can help the players, right? Really help the players. What happened that sometimes during the drill, maybe we miss some information, or I'm in the field, I'm trying that run the drill, and I don't have too many time to reflect about the game. And if I have on my paper 4 or 5 coaching points and I read them in 40 seconds, probably this information can refresh my mind and can not to say to the players what I want, is help the coaches to put this attention in some parts. Okay, if I want that my player stay between players, and I know that he has to use the head up, He has to try to stay here and here. He has to be closer from this player than this player. Probably I cannot remember all this information during the drill and during this emotion. We have emotions and we are focusing too many things. If I have clear information about this concept, then it's gonna be easier for us to pay attention if this is happening. Because sometimes the problem is not to provide the right information, is to what to see in order to analyze and identify what I have to say. I hope that this makes sense. And this for me is important to when we design the drill. Of course, that is not required. We have all the coaching points, but work before the coaching points can help the player and the coach. For example, I have experience when I was coaching the under 23 team in Sabadell. Before the training session, I used to put 2-3 coaching points in the first. I have a paper, and I put 2 ideas on the first drill, and 2 ideas on the second, and 3 ideas on the third. And in some players, I put a message. Could be a player, could be a position. Strikers today, this. Midfielders, this and this. And sometimes provide 1 or 2 or 3 messages before start a session, and then you repeat this message during the session. It's something that you are anticipating information, and it's going to be easier for the player to assimilate. Then I think that try to anticipate what will happen and try to provide key information that we know that are important for our players. It could be very beneficial for us. Okay, coming back to what Ryan said, that I think it's really interesting. How we can, when we want to ask the players and make them reflect, what about open questions? What about if we ask about references? What's your method in order to try to help the players to understand where they have the advantages or disadvantages? Ryan, you cannot talk. I want another one to talk. Russell, Michael, let's go.
I coach all ages, so collegiately, I'll give the players the first chance to discuss. So between intervals, they'll come together and they'll self-coach, and I'll give them like a guiding question or topic, like, how do we structure ourselves to be able to play around the block, or give them like some specific things to discuss. I walk around and then I listen to what they say, and that drives the next stoppage in the communication. So then I know where they're at, and then it's kind of a check-in to see where they're at as far as their understanding of the topic. So it's not open-ended. I say discuss our shape to do with transitions, or what's the cues that we're looking for. Like, I just give them something to discuss. And then my assistants, because I'm lucky to have, like, they can move around and listen to the conversations. So then that guides my next action. So in the next interval, I know where I need to focus. I know where I can cue during, like in the run of play, I'm cueing what I want to see. And it's already kind of put me in place of where the learners are at. And to kind of add to this pieces, this is what I use a lot of similar exercises because I know where the content is in the exercise. So I'm not trying to use new exercises constantly where I'm trying to find where's the moment going to appear? How do I manufacture it? I know when it's going to happen typically, or I know where they're going to struggle depending on where they're at in the season, in the session, like in our periodization piece. So that's another reason why I lean on a lot of similar exercises, because I already have the content ready, because I have just time and experience with the exercises.
That's interesting because, for example, I work in China for a national project for the grassroots, and I observed this, that when you want to change too many drills, you're losing time because the player needs to assimilate what is happening. And if you are working in certain structures, it's easier for the player to get the point and get what you want to work. But sometimes we want to change every day new drills, and it's really difficult for some players that maybe don't have this culture about what the type of work that we want to do, and it's difficult for them to really understand the why behind all these things. Okay, my question: when you talk about Michael, when you talk about the next step into talk, what do you think, or what could be a possible question for the players? You said a topic about play around the block, right? Or
Yeah, so let's say, yeah, we're working on, and we actually trained this last night, was recognizing, we call it the first problem. So you have the first line of pressure. So are we going to play through them, or are we going to play around them? And so based on our team structure, are we giving ourselves a chance to actually break the line by around, or are we lacking width, or is our position to be able to break the line in the first touch? And so we play with a back three and we're solving something. Are they too deep so they can't break the first line of pressure? So sending them off with, that's the question. Like, all right, how can we improve our structure so that we have the chance to play around if the block's too narrow? Or, are we occupying the space behind the first line to play through them, for example? So it gives them like, all right, I need to get wider and higher, or yeah, I'm too close, I haven't dropped in behind the line of pressure. So they tend to hit it because they know like where they're at with the content. They have a pretty good feel for it. But yeah, it's just better off for them saying it than hearing me say it constantly. So that's kind of the mission behind it. But I would say that's kind of the question or the premise behind the idea.
And right now, if you have to coach younger kids, right, under 12, under 13, under 11, do you think that this type of questions, it could be very general, could be helpful for them, or maybe you can go a little bit more specific?
Yeah, and then I work with my daughter's U11 team at the same time, and so we discuss some different. It's not like we're changing the language to make it not soccer specific, but it's more of, what makes it tougher for the defenders to be able to defend the three of us? And then they're like, well, if we're spread out, we've got more room, and it's harder for them to. What if the defenders are really close together? Where's the space? And then they're like, well, it's on the outside of them. So similar conversations. They still have these little breakouts where they have a team meeting, and I will tell them like, all right, this is how do we get, again, structure to be able to get around them versus having to, if we can't play through them. And so again, this is year 2 with this group. So they'll use those words like, we need to get wide so we can get around them, or the defenders are really far apart, so we can pass through them if we have someone in. So again, it's a 10-year-old girl's language versus a 20-year-old college player's language, but they're saying the same things. And again, it comes back to it's their words and their learning versus repeating what I say is the goal as much as we can.
I think that something that you're doing, maybe without being very conscious, is that you ask for recognize the situation and you ask for certain references, right? I think that when you ask about this, you can find the advantages or the disadvantages. I think that, as you said, something important for our players is about recognize the situation. Okay, what is happening here? And what is happening here, it means that recognize what is happening with the ball, what is happening with my teammates, what's happening with the defenders, depending on the occupation that they are having and the behaviors that they have, then I can recognize a certain situation. Because of this situation, we can recognize advantages and disadvantages. As you said, hey, how is the opposing team? It's narrow, or is it split, or it's compact? If they're compact, we cannot play there. What is advantage outside? Then I think that you said in your own way, right? But at the end, you are following this process that you are trying to help the players to understand and recognize the situation, asking for certain references. Okay, I have the ball and I have a 2v1. Okay, what is the defender here? What the defender does is blocking the passing lane. Where is the space in front? What you can do? I can dribble. Okay, I think that it's important to help the players to understand to recognize the situation, because when we talk in a really general speech, as Ryan said, that is something that I like, if the player, sometimes the player makes the mistakes because they don't know about what is happening. I'm doing something wrong because I don't know what could be helpful for me. I don't recognize the advantage because I don't know what the advantage is. Then if we have the players to recognize the situation asking for some references that for me it's always about the ball, teammates, defenders, and consequently we'll have the space and the time. It's gonna be really easy to understand for the players. I think that if we follow this process about tell them to recognize the situation, asking for the key references, both teammates, defenders, and space of time, then they can understand and think a little bit deeper about what is the advantage or the disadvantage. And after that is when we can or we must prioritize the information that we set to the players. I think that once we have this picture and the player is recognizing the situations and the player recognize that, okay, the defender is blocking the passing lane, I can dribble, but I'm not dribbling because I don't know, then I can send information to the player. Okay, right now that my information during the drill is going to be directed to look the space. Do you have a space in front? What is the defender doing? Then you can keep asking the player for these key references, and this will help the player to recognize the situation even better. I think that this for me is the process to help the players to really assimilate the why behind the concept, because from the concept is not a concept. The concept is a tool that you can apply depending in the different scenarios. In one scenario, we'll use one tool, and in a different scenario, we'll use another tool. But it's important that the players recognize when each tool can be good for them. Russell, do you want to say something? Okay, no worries. And something that I think that it's also interesting is that if we design our training session in a really progressive way and all these objectives are aligned, we can link previous information into the new information. What it means, if, for example, I'm working on the pressing, the build-up in my last drill, but on the first drill, I work on the pressing runs, then I can remember coaching points of the pressing run. I can remember individual information, even though I'm working on collective information. But I can remember previous information that I shared before with the players. If we change completely the objective, this it's not useful. We cannot work on that. Then I think that when we create training session, it's not just about what I want to do in the first and second and third. It's about, okay, I understand that this is a process. When I start, when I finish, and when I finish on the last drill, I can step by step, or I can in some moments remember some information that I know that will enhance the individual foundations or the relation between two players, because it's something that I worked before. And I think that this is important, that even though we're moving from a simple idea to a complex idea, and we end with this complex idea, sometimes remember simple messages that can help the players to achieve this last objective.